Jealous brother hooked up with my fiancée right after our engagement, so I snitched to the whole family. Now they're being cut off. Hello everyone. I'm 23 million and I recently got engaged and broke it off within 2 weeks. My fiancée Riley, 23F, hooked up with my older brother Adam, 27M, the night after our engagement. My disgusting brother even tried to rub it in my face to make me feel worse. Riley and I had been together for almost 3 years, but she threw it all away for my brother on the very night we got engaged. She told me she was thrilled to be marrying me, only to go back on her word the next day by sleeping with Adam. I was devastated and furious. I ended things with her over text, blocked her, and changed the locks on my house so she couldn't come back. Riley and I had been living together for the past year, and things had been going really well. Or so I thought. I truly believed it was the right time to propose. Never in a million years did I think she'd betray me for Adam, of all people. She knew about the intense rivalry between us and how we've never gotten along. My dad passed away in an accident when I was a baby, so I have no memories of him. Adam, on the other hand, spent a little time with him before he died. Adam never liked me, and growing up, he was my biggest enemy. He was always a bully, and as a single mum, my mother didn't have the time or energy to deal with our sibling rivalry. She was too busy working to pay the bills and put food on the table. Our uncle, my dad's brother, visited often and tried to help out as much as he could. My mom stayed in touch with my dad's family after his death because she didn't want them to lose their grandkids after already losing their son. My uncle became the closest thing I had to a father figure, and he still is. For Adam, though, it was always our mom. She didn't play favorites outright, but it was obvious that if she had to pick one of us, it would be Adam. That only made our rivalry worse because I wanted to be her favorite too. Unfortunately, I was always a bit of a loser growing up. I wasn't good at sports, and I was mediocre at best when it came to academics. I was skinny, had no standout talents, and was insecure about pretty much everything. That made it hard for me to talk to people, make friends, or be popular. I was an introverted kid who mostly kept to myself. Adam, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. He was great at sports, decent academically, and had a big, sturdy build from all his athletics. Needless to say, being his little brother was embarrassing. Even though no one said it to my face, I knew everyone compared me to him and thought I was a loser in comparison. Over time, I learned to live in his shadow and just let him walk all over me. My self-esteem took a huge hit during my childhood, and I never fully recovered. Even by my last day of high school, I barely had any friends. People thought I was weird and didn't want to talk to me. Things only started to change when I graduated and moved away for college. It was like I became a new person. No one knew me as Adam's little brother, so I finally got to grow into my own. I'm so thankful I was able to go to college out of state, where nobody knew me. I don't think I'd be the person I am today without that experience. I have my uncle to thank for it because he's the one who paid for my tuition. My mom had told me she couldn't afford to send me to a college far away and wanted me to pick something closer to home. But I had my mind set, and my uncle stepped up to cover the costs. I made a lot of friends in college and graduated at the top of my class. My mom and uncle attended my graduation, but Adam didn't, even though I'd been there for his. After moving out, Adam and I didn't keep in touch for obvious reasons. He hated me for no reason, and I hated him because he made my childhood and teenage years a total nightmare. I was glad to be rid of him. We only saw each other during holidays or when we came back home for birthdays. It's been years, and that's the arrangement we've stuck to. We didn't consider each other family beyond the walls of our house, but I did console him and send him a message when he lost all his money a couple of years ago. He'd quit his job to start his own business, but it failed miserably. My uncle and mom had to bail him out because he was neck-deep in debt. He couldn't go back to his old job, so he had to move back into our mom's house for a few months until he got back on his feet. Even when he finally found a job, it wasn't as good as his previous one. He took it anyway because he wanted to move out of our mom's house. He was well into his 20s and felt embarrassed to still be living with her. This is what my uncle told me, and it was upsetting to hear. His life had completely unraveled. I felt bad for him and sent him a message of consolation, but I think he misunderstood it. He thought I was bragging or making fun of him, so he blocked me and ignored me for the next couple of holidays. We weren't exactly close when we met, but we tried to keep things civil. At the very least, we'd greet each other, even if it was coldly. But after that message, there was no talking between us. I'd like to say Adam's life got better after that, but it didn't. He took the failure of his business really hard, and every time I saw him after that, he seemed worse for wear. My uncle told me he'd switched jobs 7 or 8 times, but didn't seem content with any of them. His clothes got shabbier, and you could physically see the state of his mind reflected in how he acted at family gatherings. He was always either drinking or quietly staring at nothing. I say this from the bottom of my heart. It really made me feel bad for him when I saw him in that state. I'd always hated him growing up, but now it was just hard to hate someone who was already going through so much. My uncle always tried to include him in our conversations, but Adam didn't seem interested. He'd always take off early. I had also started bringing Riley to these gatherings after we'd been together for a year. She knew about Adam and even seemed concerned about him, but there wasn't much we could do. Fast forward to our engagement, which took place 2 weeks ago. Riley and I were at my uncle's house for his birthday dinner. I'd asked him first and made sure he was okay with me proposing to her at his dinner party, and he was. So, I went ahead with it. The family would all be there anyway, and my uncle had a beautiful house with a lovely garden. It was just the perfect place. I'd even invited her parents, but they weren't going to show up until after the proposal, so she wouldn't guess what was about to happen. After my uncle cut the cake, I took Riley outside and popped the question. She said yes, and then we went back in to announce it to everyone and celebrate. I did notice that Adam left within minutes of me making the announcement, but I didn't think too much of it. I was busy with everyone else that evening, and he usually takes off early from family gatherings anyway, so it wasn't out of the ordinary. Riley and I had a great evening, and then we went back home. She didn't mention anything about Adam or his weird behavior to me after we got back, which she usually does whenever we go to any of my family events. We were both really tired and a little drunk, so I was knocked out as soon as my head hit the pillow. But I did wake up accidentally around 2 a.m. because I had to use the bathroom. When I woke up, I realized Riley was still on her phone. I asked her who she was talking to, and she told me she was telling a couple of her friends about the engagement. That seemed innocent enough, so I didn't suspect anything and went back to sleep. But 2 days later, while I was at work, I received a bunch of texts from Adam. It was really unexpected because the last time we'd had a conversation, he'd blocked me. The texts were just screenshots of his conversation with Riley. In those chats, they were planning to get together and hook up, which they did. It started with Adam reaching out to her to congratulate her on the engagement. She asked him why he wasn't present for the rest of the evening, and he told her he was upset about a lot of things and wanted to get out of there while he could because he didn't want to intrude on my happiness. He talked about how we'd never been friends and how he felt it was inappropriate for him to be present on such an occasion for me. He was making himself look like some sad little puppy who wasn't wanted, but the truth is, I wouldn't have cared if he'd stayed for the evening. He only wanted Riley to sympathize with him so it would be easier for him to manipulate her, and that's exactly what happened. She started consoling him and told him there was somebody out there for him. She also said I was a great guy and that I didn't mean to rub it in his face, so she apologized on our behalf if he felt bad about what happened. Adam responded by saying he'd never be able to find someone like Riley, so he didn't see the point in even searching. That slimy jerk started flirting with her, and she flirted back. Suddenly, they were making plans to meet. I know for a fact she did go over to his house the night after our engagement because she told me she was going to spend the night at her friend's place to tell her everything about the engagement. On top of that, Adam sent me pictures of Riley's clothes on his bed. That was all I needed to see. It was a sick and disgusting thing to do, and it really caught me off guard. I took the rest of the day off and went back home immediately after receiving Adam's texts. I was sobbing uncontrollably, but even with tears in my eyes, I decided to get the locks changed. I started packing whatever I could lay my hands on. Anything I saw that belonged to Riley, I put into a cardboard box. Once I was done, I placed it outside the door. By the time I finished, it was almost time for Riley to come home. I hadn't seen her since the previous night because she told me she'd go to work directly from her friend's place. Of course, now I know she went to work from Adam's house. I wanted to break up with her in person, but after a while, I decided it wasn't worth it. She had cheated on me literally the day after I proposed, after promising to spend the rest of her life with me. I was too upset to face her, so I ended it through text. I sent her a message saying I knew she'd hooked up with Adam and that I didn't want to be with her anymore. I told her she disgusted me and said all her stuff was outside the door. She could grab the box and go because I didn't want to see her. If she'd left anything behind, she could come back later to collect it. I told her we were over, sent the message, and blocked her. A few minutes after I sent that text, Riley was at my doorstep, knocking and begging me to let her in. She was devastated, and I could hear it in her voice. She begged me to give her a chance to explain herself, saying she knew she'd made a huge mistake, but just wanted me to hear her out. It went on for about half an hour, and it was incredibly difficult to keep my calm and ignore her. After she'd tried everything, from crying to manipulation and back to begging, she finally left. Just to be safe, I didn't open the door for about an hour after the begging stopped, to make sure she wasn't still waiting outside. Once I was sure she was gone, I ordered some takeout, had dinner, and tried to go to sleep. But I was so upset that I couldn't bring myself to close my eyes. I wanted to do something big to get back at Adam and really teach him a lesson, but I couldn't think of anything. I kept brainstorming for a while, and when nothing came to me, I decided to take the easiest way out. I forwarded those screenshots to everybody in the family, saying, "This is what my dear brother Adam did to me." Then I turned my phone off and went to sleep. Honestly, I didn't have a plan in mind, and I didn't set any conditions for my relatives. Whatever they did was of their own volition, and I had no part in it. Everyone in the family responded with sympathy, telling me they'd blocked Adam and were cutting him off. They were all in shock after finding out what he'd done and reached out to console me, except for my mom. She didn't talk to me in the first couple of days after I sent that message, but she visited me a few days later, looking very upset. I knew she wasn't there to console me like the others. I was right. She'd come to talk to me about my actions. She told me she understood I was upset with Adam, rightfully so, but even then, I should have refrained from publicizing the incident. Her reasoning was that Adam was already suffering so much. He was a grown man living hand to mouth, with a failed business and no prospects in his love life. He'd have a few flings here and there, but nothing permanent. It was especially sad because he'd been a really promising young man when he was younger. No one could have imagined he'd turn out so unsuccessful and miserable. On the other hand, no one could have expected me to be as successful as I am today, whether in my career or relationships. My mom believed Adam did this out of jealousy, which I already knew. For context, I work in an architecture firm and have a high-paying job. I worked really hard to get where I am now. If Adam had researched his business properly, instead of rushing into it head first, it wouldn't have failed, and he wouldn't be earning less than half of what I make. But coming back to the point, while my mum was telling me all this, it almost felt like she was trying to justify what he'd done. So, I interrupted her and asked if she was actually trying to make it seem okay for Adam to hook up with my fiancée the night after we got engaged, just because his life was sad and pathetic. She took a minute and then said it wasn't okay, but I needed to understand where he was coming from and be a little more sympathetic and forgiving. She went on to tell me that the family cutting ties with Adam had hit him really hard and he was miserable. Family get-togethers were the only thing he had going for him because he felt embarrassed to be around his friends, who were a lot more successful than he was. He didn't keep in touch with them, so family was all he had. I was happy about that. I didn't care that he was miserable because he'd broken up me and Riley. He deserved this, and I had no sympathy to spare for him. But my mom believed I should be the bigger person and talk to everyone to convince them to give him a chance. Not only that, she wanted me to reach out to him and clear the air. I told her I wasn't doing any of it, and that she was crazy to even expect I'd reach out to the person who ruined my relationship on purpose. I snapped at her. I told her I knew she had favorites, even if she didn't make it obvious, but she didn't have to rub it in my face and make me feel so awful. I said if I'd done the same thing to Adam, she wouldn't have tried to justify it or make it seem like no big deal. She probably would have been up in arms about it, and I knew that for a fact. She tried to deny it, and we started arguing. It turned into a big fight, where she got very upset and huffy. She left the house after saying she wouldn't talk to me until I reached out to Adam and tried to sort things out with him. It's been a couple of days since then, and my relatives have been checking in on me. Mostly, it's my uncle who's been texting me daily. Riley also sends me messages from time to time, hoping to win me back, or at least have a conversation with me. But I haven't replied. I haven't blocked her yet either, but I know I have to, and I will eventually. The only person I haven't heard from after our big fight is my mother, and I really feel bad about it. I already mentioned that I knew my brother was her favorite, because they always seemed to have some inexplicable bond, even when I was a kid. My mom never played favorites, at least not up until now. I just feel very confused about what she said. I'm content with my life right now, and it's not like I'm depressed or anything, but I do want my mother in my life. I just don't think I agree with her opinion on the whole Adam and Riley situation. So, what do you guys think? AITA for sending my family proof of my brother and my fiancée cheating on me. Hello everyone. To keep this video going, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and helps us continue bringing you great stories. So, if you enjoy our content, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support makes a huge difference. Alright, let's keep going. Update 1. The people have spoken, and the people have been hurt. Thank you so much for all the comments on the original post, and for reading through it so patiently. I'm glad so many of you had great advice for me on what to do next, and reassured me that I wasn't in the wrong. My mother saying all that really made me feel like I was somehow out of line for what I did, but evidently, that's not the case. I have no need to reach out to anybody. I also spoke to my uncle about what my mum said. I hadn't told anybody earlier because this was kind of personal, and I didn't want to discuss it with other people. But my uncle is family, and I felt considerably better after speaking to him. He told me he'd also noticed my mother always favored Adam over me. It wasn't always obvious, but it was definitely there, and anybody with a brain could tell she had a favorite, and it wasn't me. He told me he really felt awful about what happened with me because he knew how strongly I felt for Riley, and yet she didn't think twice before hooking up with Adam, despite knowing about our relationship. It was upsetting, but there wasn't much I could do. Honestly, I'm kind of okay now. I like to think I dodged a bullet there. I haven't moved on from her entirely, but I know I'll get there. That's really not what I'm worried about, though. My relationship with my mother is something I don't want to lose, but if she acts like this and victimizes Adam, then I don't see a way for us to get along or reconcile. My uncle thinks I should just give up on it. He said he knows my mother, and he also knows she isn't going to back down if she believes she's right. He told me I shouldn't hold out hope that she might come around and talk to me because it's quite unlikely. Since our family cut Adam off, she's been visiting him almost every day. It hurt that she was still going out of her way to look after him, even though I was the one who actually lost a relationship because of him, and quite an important one at that. But I also understand that I can't help the situation, and it is what it is. That's something my uncle taught me, to just accept things and let it go. I guess that's what I have to do. I tried arguing with my mother and making her see sense, but she wasn't interested in the truth. She was only interested in making sure Adam had all the support he needed. Fine by me, I guess. Update 2. It's been almost 2 weeks since I broke up with Riley. She'd been texting me almost every other day for about a week after we broke up, but then she just stopped, probably after she realized begging me to take her back wasn't going to work. I don't want to speak to her or hear her side of the story. I don't even know why she thought explaining her side would make it any better, because, as far as I'm concerned, nothing excuses cheating. And that's just how it is. But she reached out to me yesterday and told me she wanted to come by and collect some of the things she'd left behind. That's when I finally replied, because now we were getting down to business. Instead of our conversations being her begging me to talk to her and me ignoring all those texts, I told her she could come by today. I was taking a day off anyway, so I figured I might as well get this over with. She dropped by around noon, and I could tell she was really upset. She looked worse for wear and didn't look me in the eye even once the entire time she was there. I didn't say anything to her either. After I opened the door and let her in, there was silence in the house while she packed her things. I sat on the couch in the living room and avoided looking at her. Once she was done packing, she told me she was going to leave. Even though I had a lot to say to her, I just said goodbye and went back to my phone. She didn't deserve anything more than that, and after that, she was just gone for good. It feels weird, but in a nice way, because this just means I don't ever have to talk to her or be reminded of her by things around the house or her messages. I blocked her a few minutes after she left and decided to celebrate by watching our favorite movie on my own. Still no word from my mother, but with time, it's becoming easier for me to come to terms with it. At least now I know for sure that she would never have taken my side here simply because I'm not Adam. So whatever I did for her would never be good enough. And honestly, I'm sick of trying. My uncle told me he also had a fight with her recently while he was trying to defend me, and she didn't like it. So they aren't on speaking terms anymore either. I can't believe she's willing to sacrifice her relationship with both of us just so she can continue defending Adam, even though she knows he's a jerk. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but I guess if that's what she wants, then whatever. Update 3. It's been a month since I last posted here, and I can't believe that until a month ago, I was still whining about how my mother doesn't love me. But I'm better now, and I just don't care about what my mother thinks. She's just as delusional and selfish as my brother, and that's probably why they get along so well, because they're both horrible people. I was quite unfortunate to be related to both of them, but now I have no ties with either of them, and I'm so thankful for it. They don't deserve somebody like me, and neither did Riley. I was always too good for them, and if they couldn't see that, then that's on them. It's their loss, all the way. I don't have to feel bad for anything, and that's exactly why I don't feel bad about the fact that nobody from our family talks to them anymore, or invites them to any events. They just have no link to any of us anymore, and I couldn't be happier about it. Riley and I haven't spoken ever since she came back here to collect her things for the last time. I blocked her afterward, and so did most of our mutual friends after they found out the real reason behind our engagement falling through. But my mother did try to reach out to me a few days ago. Even now, she doesn't think she needs to apologize to me, which is just insane to even think about. In our last conversation, she was still harping on about how Adam is suffering and has been diagnosed with clinical depression. I told her I could give her a psychotherapist's phone number, but nothing else, and I definitely wasn't going to talk to our family members to make them sympathize with him. Then she started trying to manipulate me by going all emotional and sentimental on me. She was really laying it on thick, saying she'd already lost her husband and didn't want to lose the two most important men in her life now because of some stupid, petty fight over a girl. It was interesting that she saw the fight as stupid and petty because, the way I remember it, the fight wasn't over some girl. It was over my fiancé, and it was neither stupid nor petty. Adam had decided to hook up with Riley on purpose, all because he wanted to make me feel bad. So, I think I was perfectly within reason to be mad at him and never want to speak to him again. As for the rest of our family, I hadn't coerced them into doing anything. They cut Adam and my mother off because of their own behavior, and I had absolutely nothing to do with that. So, if they want to blame somebody, they should blame themselves. This is what I told my mother before blocking her. Now I can finally move on with my life, and they can go to hell for all I care.